Right. Um, Again, it's time for my next album review. Um, and I have planned this review for quite some time now. And uh, yeah, I mean, as a Finn myself, I just thought that I really want and I really need to do, well, not need, but I really want to do an Finnish band album review. And of course, there was a couple of bands I was thinking of doing some album review of, and I decided to do an album review of the band called Convulse. Uh, Not really sure how you pronounce it, Convulse, I think. Anyway, today I'm going to review Convulse Reflections, uh, their 1994 album and their second album. And let me talk about a little bit about this band. So the band was, if I'm not mistaken, it was formed in either very late 80s or very early 90s. Uh, and it was one of the first bands that really, started the death metal scene here in Finland. Uh, so it was very much among the first wave of death metal bands, and others were like Pertenance, uh, Amorphis, uh, I'm not sure, but I think Demigod. Uh, what else? I can't now really think of any other. Of course, Sentenced, uh, which is now dead and buried, unfortunately. But yeah, I loved early Sentenced. But anyway, back to the Convulse. So their first album was 1991, I think. Again, I don't know why I never can't really remember if it was 91 or 92, but I think it was 91. Their first album, World Without God, was very uh, praised album. Uh, it's a very dark, very moody, but just very raw and brutal death metal album to the core. Like some sick riffs and just straight in the face death metal. But yeah, I decided to actually do the review of their second album because, uh, well, firstly, it's a big departure from their first album. So, whereas their first album was just old school, pure, in your face death metal, this was. Uh, their 1994 album was uh, much more like Death and Roll album that was a short thing, I would say, in the mid 19s. Like there were also Entombed that were doing the pretty much same kind of death and roll with their album Wolverine Blues, which came, I think, the same year, if I'm not mistaken, 1994. But yeah, it was a very short, brief time when, well, some death metal bands just experienced with more, uh, rock and roll sounding, but still very much death metal influenced music. And Convulse also did this with their second album, and I've always loved so much this album right from the beginning. Of course, I can't really compare the first and second albums because they are so different. They are great albums in their own style, pretty much. And the band, unfortunately, at first they disbanded. Well, actually, before even this album was released, but then they reformed back in, I think, about early 2010 or something, like 10 years ago. And since then they have released uh, 3 albums, and as far as I know, they are already planning or even doing a next album. So their overall 6th album, if I calculated right. Anyway, I'm going to show you this little bit. Well, the CD and the artwork. So yeah, this is very interesting album. Really great mix of still sounding death metal, but there are it's much more catchy. There are very catchy riffs here. This is full of just memorable riffs and just very groovy, very catchy songs, but also some more darker songs also here, but not in a not in a type of World Without God, because that is a whole different vibe in that album than in this. But I'll go through the songs a little bit. So the first song is Intro. It's a very nice, very melodic, I think it's just a keyboards, just a keyboard song, like keyboard intro, but really nice melodies there, and very beautiful song. Yeah, there is also guitar in it, not just, as I now remember, there is also a guitar in the intro, but yeah, really beautiful melodies, and it you can't really know what to expect if you're listening this for the first time after the intro. You can't really know what to expect next in the second song, or the actual kind of first full song. And the next song, The Rite of Sunshine, is it really sets the mood for the whole album. It's just very, very catchy melodies, uh, very groovy guitar riffs, and yeah, just awesome with raw guitar sound, but still very very rock and roll, of course. And I just love it that it's a death and roll is uh, I've always liked death and roll. Uh, it's a kind of rock and rock and roll style, but much darker and just much more you know uh, just much more intense, of course. And also, like in their first album, there were pretty basic but really good, like growling vocals from Rami Jamsat, the guitarist, vocalist. And this album doesn't really, in that sense, like the vocals, this is not really a big change from their first album. This still has a very raw, guttural, growling vocals, like very traditional but very good death metal vocals, and it just goes very nicely with uh, much more laid back and lighter style of metal than the first album. It just balances. The balance is just awesome, like very brutal vocals, but the music is catchy and melodic. I really love it. And yeah, there's also some uh, in that song, "The Rite of Sunshine." There's also some uh, clean vocals here, kind of. Well, not exactly clean, but I would say a little bit harsh, but yeah, melodic vocals there. And the next song, "The Green is Grey," again, I would say the album's more lighter songs, lighter side of songs, but yeah, again, really catchy riffs. Uh, uh, well, very, very good song. Uh, what else is to really say about it? Okay, let's move on. It's a great song. The fourth one, which is one of my favorites on the album, "Years of Decay," and that may even be my favorite song from the album. It's a little bit more darker song. It's definitely one of the more darker songs on the album. It has a it still has a catchy melodic riffs, but it still has also the more darker, grittier riffs, and you know, much more heavy riffs in this song. Uh, yeah, absolutely love that. Definitely one of my favorites on the album. And then the fifth, "Memories," that's also, I would say, "Years of Decay" and "Memories" are among my best three songs from the album. And "Memories," uh, that is a very interesting song. It's a very it's one of the more varied songs from the album. It just changes so much during the song. It has some very melodic parts, but it also has some very very brutal, like old school death metal uh, style parts in the song also, and I really love that balance, you know. Yeah, I would say, yeah, I can't decide which song is my absolute favorite, but yeah, definitely 4 and 5 are, you know, they are just absolutely great songs. Then the sixth, The Nation Cries. Um, well, let me be clear. There are no bad songs. Definitely not. You can't find any bad songs here. But if I had to pick my least favorite song, it might be The Nation Cries, maybe, because I can't really remember much. There are not so memorable moments for me in the song, at least, that I can't really, you know, now remember or try to pick up exactly what was in the song. It just, you know, goes along with the rest, but really not like a highlight. Well, at least for me, of course, there's millions of opinions, but of course, this is just mine. Um, then the seventh, Crying Back Yesterday. Uh, Also, yeah, same as The Nation Cries. I would say sixth and seventh song are my two least favorite tracks from the album. But like I said, every track is still very good. So yeah, there are definitely no bad songs here. But yeah, The Nation Cries and Crying Back Yesterday are my least favorites, but still very good. And then my like I mentioned, the Years of Decay and Memories were two of the three best songs for me, and this is the third best song, Lost Equilibrium. It's the longest song on the album, and it has a very nice and very long intro with just the guitar melodies. Really sets the mood for the song. Really great, you know, builds up the tension of the song before it explodes and goes all uh, goes all uh, dark and brutal. Definitely one of the more darker songs on the album. Uh, yeah, and I think this song also was their, you know, single release. But yeah, those are my three favorite tracks: Years of Decay, Memories, and Lost Equilibrium. And then the last song, The New Arrival, really, uh, I I would say the most interesting song on the album. It even has some very surprising electronic uh, electronic music, you know, parts all of a sudden in the song, and I was like, first, okay, what is this? But it actually fits very well for some reason. It just fits very well. But also, I am a big fan of electronic music overall. Not like I don't like all kinds of electronic music, but I really like trance, big beat, drum and bass, and yeah, very interesting song. Definitely, if I had to pick, the New Arrival would be my fourth favorite track on the album. Uh, Probably. So yeah, there are 9 songs. Well, eight songs and intro, and yeah, this is yeah. I've always loved this album so much. Like, uh, it's it's a kind. Well, I don't know exactly, but I have this feeling that this is very overlooked album, like uh, very underrated and not mentioned so much, like when talking about the band. It's always World Without God, their first debut that really is their, yeah, I would say they're definitely most popular album. But yeah, very underrated, very underrated. But I I freaking love this album like to the core. This is just so many memorable, you know, moments in this album. Like, and every song is just uh, very catchy, and like I said, there are a couple of more darker songs which are my uh, among my favorite ones, but still I very much also like the more lighter songs on the album. So yeah, and next time I'm going to give uh, a rating for this, and I'm going to give it a solid 9 out of 10. Yeah, 9 out of 10. Like, this is, for me, this is the best death and roll album I've ever heard. Like, I have heard Entombed's Wolverine Blues, and even though that album is very praised and very popular, and fans and just uh, like heavy music fans, just metal fans really love that album, but I think this is actually better than Wolverine Blues. Like, my honest opinion, this is better in my opinion. But again, I haven't heard that many. I have to admit, I haven't heard that many death and roll albums. But yeah, I can say that this is so good that I don't think that many other death and roll albums would top this album for me. They have to be like really fucking good albums to even touch this album or even top this album. So yeah, this is it, my review of Convulse Reflections 1994 album. And yeah, really loved their, I didn't really talk about their, uh, last 3 albums, but yeah, maybe I could little bit talk about them. So after the reformation, uh, they released their kind of comeback album back to the old school death metal, to their roots. The album was called Evil Prevails, if I remember right. uh, and then the next album was definitely much more progressive metal, called Cycle of Revenge. And after that, their latest album, Death Star, pretty much peaked where the Cycle of Revenge left. So it was again very progressive metal album, just took the progressive elements even further than their previous album. So there you go, a little bit about the last 3 albums there. So yeah, again, Convulse, Reflections. If you really love death and roll, please pick up this album if you can get your hands on it. I mean, there hasn't been reissue of this album. This is like the original, I think. I bought this back in 90s. I think it was something like 98 or something that I found this album in Veljekset Keskinen. That is a big store here in Finland, about 150 kilometers away from Vaasa, where I live. So yeah, I found it there, and I've really have been really gripping my hands on this and never let go. Like, this is just awesome, and I hope that they'll one day re-release this album, like reissue it, so it will be again available. Like, of course there are, used ones you can find, but yeah, if you can find this, pick this one up if you really love death and roll. Yeah, that's my final words. So see you in the next video. That will probably be my NHL 22. Now I can quite safely say the NHL is just 2 days, only 2 days till it's released. Well, the X Factor edition is already out, but the standard edition will be out in 2 days. So expect my next video to be NHL 22 review. Okay, enough. Now, bye, and see you in the NHL review, most likely. Bye.